Honorable members, please take your seats. Honorable members, please take your seats. Thank you. Honorable members, I wish to acknowledge the presence in the gallery of the delegation of the officials of the United Kingdom who are visiting Parliament on a scoping visit. They are being led by the Consul General, Mr. Benjamin Body. You're welcome to our Parliament. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Tributes to the Springbok rugby team.
Thank you very much. The Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Somlomo obekekileyo amalungu alendlu. Amazwe enkuthazo kwimpumelelo yezinsibabhokhwe. Isizwe sonke siyadloba sonwabile. Luchulumanco kuthi ngenxa yenu zitsibabhokhwe sithi ke wuntshu. Inde indlela esihambileyo sisonyuka amaqhina. Sixwesa kwimiwewe namaxethuka enzima yoMzantsi Afrika owahlukahlukeneyo. Akunamhlanje kusika inimba ukubona singcwaba iyantlukwano ngempumelelo yezitsibabhokhwe emva kokutywatyusha kwanobomu. Iinkunzi ebezigquba zikhonya zodwa kwisibaya sombhoxo. Sinembali ebuhlungu encwinisayo, kodwa kumele sidlule ekugcumeni, sisele umhlonyane sithi camagu. Noko ukudeda ubumnyama kuvela ukukhanya ngokweMzantsi Afrika. Ezemidlalo ziyeza setyenziswa zalikheswa lokucinezela ingakumbi isizwe esintsundu. Sicalucalula ilungelo lethu lokudlala ngokobuzwe. Unyamezelwano ngundoqo xa kusakhiwa isizwe. Ewe khona kuyatshizwana ngodaka xa kusokhiwa indlu. Kodwa yakuphela indlu kwakungenwa ngaphakathi akuphinde kutshizwane ngodaka koko kuchetywana induma. Imbali elusizi esiphuma kuyo kufuneka singayiphindi, kodwa sikhuthaze wonke ummi woMzantsi Afrika ukuba masisondelelane. Amathole anyongande nje kukudlelana. Niliqhayiya lesizwe nilibhongo mabhokobhoko ningamaqhawe. Nisibuyisile isidima sethu ehlabathini nazisa umanyalo lwesizwe ontsundu nomhlophe babhiyoza kunye. Masibulele nakuqamata ngokuba anithwale anise eJapan elizweni elikude niphinde nibuye ningena nomkhwelo. Lowo ngumzekelo wabantu abadlalayo nabaziphatha kakuhle. Namhla kunamhla nizintandane zeAfrika. Nibhala imbali entsha, niqala uqalo olutsha, zaqandusela inyosi kubomo obutsha. Ubani na ubesazi uba abantwana bomthonyama, isizukulwana sikalithuli sikaThambo sikaMandela uNkosi uDalibhunga, ukuba namhlanje siza kumanya isizwe. Ewe yayingeyompazamo apho uNkosi uDalibhunga wathi kuni maligcinwe ligama leSpringbok ezitsibabhokhwe khona ukuze sisebenzise lona ukwakha isizwe sisimanya sibheka phambili. Amagorha elilizwe ephelekwe nguMadiba ngokwakhe, Keith Christie, uPinar noDuplessis ngo1995 abuye nayo le ndebe yehlabathi. Saqonda into yoba mabaphindwe khona ukuze iduma lizokopha ngophindwa. EFrance abuya eyiqwayile ngo2007 ekhokhelwa ngumongameli uMbhekizizi elimnyama ngokwalo, liphelekwe nguJake White, uJohn Smith noZola Yeye. Kubenjalo nangoku kulo 2019 magorha kamongameli uCyril Ramaphosa anisiphoxanga ngokuza nayo okwesithathu le ndebe ekhokhelwa nguRasi Erasmus nomdako omnyama ongeva sepha unqina lwendlovu siyakholisi ugqiya ngokwakhe. Sizokuthi ke siyile parlamente yomdibaniso yomZantsi Afrika namhlanje kuni bantwana bomgquba enkosi ngokusiqaqambisa ilizwe lokhoko bethu. Sinibonile nizilahlele kwajacu kwilizwe elikude sanqwala isizwe satsho ngesankxwe. Sithi mazene thole zenenje njalo nangomso ukuphakamisa ilizwe lomZantsi Afrika. Somlomo izibabhokwe zilimanyile ilizwe ubone ngamayeyeye. Amanxeba wethu masiwabophe ngezemidlalo sibheke phambili xa simanyene sinokwenza lukhulu. Ikheswa lilele kuni ke neceko ukuze niphuhlise abantwana abafuna ukudlala babe njengani ezilokishini nasemakhaya. Ndiyabulela.
Siyabulela. The Chief Whip of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, my brothers and sisters in Parliament, all South Africans, there is a dream I feel so real, so real. All the world in union, the world is one. Never could we have imagined that the lyrics to what is now known as the Rugby World Cup theme song would be so prophetic. Our country has been in a bad way. Our people have been divided. Hate was becoming the norm, leaving many people feeling more than a little helpless and vulnerable. The problem is we as a people were forgetting who we were. The times in which we find ourselves had made it hard for us to see the light, the flame that burns inside each and every one of us. That flame reminds us that we are a nation of love and kindness and forgiveness and resilience and determination and bravery. It is that flame that burns in the South African soul that many have tried to extinguish but have failed at every attempt. It is that flame that tells us that when we are together, we are in fact stronger together. It is the flame that causes us to always revert to our default position as a nation, which is love. It is the flame that causes us to have the best sense of humor in the world. The flame that allows us to do the vosho to Shoma Jozi, a langarm to Kurt Darren, and the bus stop to Vulindlela, all while wearing our Springbok jerseys and flying our beautiful rainbow flag. You see, I know this love in our countries is our default position, because you cannot fake the utter joy that was felt by 99.999% of South Africans when Captain Fantastic Siya Kolisi lifted the Webb Elliott Trophy. You cannot fake that 99.99% of South Africans had a tear run down their cheek when the Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus gave us the masterclass in nation building. You cannot fake the laughter and happiness that we all felt when Faf de Klerk met Prince Harry in the Bok change room wearing a South African Speedo. You cannot fake the outpouring of love that spontaneously erupted on the streets of South Africa, in our airports and everywhere that bus went with our champions on board. That is a true love. It's not manufactured, it's real. It is our default position as South Africans. This is what it means to be South African. It means looking around and acknowledging the horrors that so many are faced with. But it is knowing that there is nothing wrong with South Africa that cannot be fixed with what is right with South Africa. Gathering together, one mind, one heart, one creed, every color, once joined, never apart. What a team! What a team! The level of determination, the strength of character, the sportsmanship, the camaraderie, it was a wonder to behold. I had the extreme honor of meeting some of the team when they started their South African tour here at Parliament, and I was immediately struck by two things. The first was their humbleness and patriotism. The second was the fact that none of them have yet realized that they in actual fact came to the rescue of a country when we were at a frighteningly low point. This squad of gentle giants have led this country from a path of hate that some amongst us were attempting to lead us down and have brought us back together. This squad of heroes ensured that love conquered hate. It wasn't just their immense talent on the field, it was their very nature. The men that lead our Springbok team are in fact heroes in every sense of the word. To the host Japan, our sincerest thanks for your incredible hospitality, your goodwill and supreme sportsmanship. To you we say, domo arigato. Other countries wanted to win the World Cup. South Africa needed to win the World Cup. Thank you to our Springbok heroes. You go now and take your place in the Hall of Legends, and always remember, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. Go Bokke!
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable Ndlozi.
The EFF has long called for total decolonization of our public symbols. This underlies our inability to join in the fake celebration of the Springboks, because the Springbok is a sign that cannot be whitewashed. It stands in parallel continuity with the stem, entrenching white supremacy in our society. That is why the rugby team in question is white-dominated. It is a perfect reflection that white people have successfully resisted change in our country for the last 25 years. By definition, apartheid was always about creating a situation where black people live as though they are a minority in this country, when in fact we are a majority. They tried to achieve this through the tricameral parliament and the Bantustan. That is why they ask us to be happy for being integrated, accommodated, included in their white-dominated associations. People agree that rugby has not transformed, and it is not about to transform. So what exactly are we celebrating? It is only us, is it only us who remember that the Springboks' purity had been kept by creating an inferior team known as the Leopards in order to distinguish them from the lily-white Springboks? Who has recognized our black rugby heroes like Majola, Mjo, Tsotsobe, Makechana, Charles Mkweba, who scored a brilliant try for the Leopards against the visiting Springbok British Lions in 1974. Out there, people say what's happening is racial unity on the streets. But the truth is, out there is scores of black people extending their exploited, marginalized, scandalized, and brutalized humanity to a white-dominated team. This is what happens every day in South Africa. Black people running behind white-dominated institutions seeking inclusion, recognition, and affirmation in the country of their own birth. Our people have done this in 95. Our people have done this in 97. And in return, the white-dominated society has not opened itself up. Lepaletswe Mandela, he could not even make you accept change, white people. To the white community, to this day, has not recognized the humanity of black people. They refuse to this day to accept that 25 years, only one Makazole Mapimpi has made it from rural rugby in the Eastern Cape, where there are more black rugby players than the white people combined in South Africa. That Siako Lizzie had to go to a white school. Otherwise, he would have not seen the light of day in the World Cup. Why must we rally behind people who, when they are together, call us baboons? One of the players in this recent team, Eben Etzebeth, is facing charges of racial assault in a case led by the human rights. We therefore call on black people to refuse the emotional abuse that the ANC government is subjecting us to. It's a collective emotional abuse. This racial parade is a complete emotional abuse of our people, and it is emotional abuse to a people who have given too many cheeks to racism, and they no longer have any other cheek to give anymore. No racial unity until the land comes back. No racial unity until equality in black people paid the same salaries as white people for doing the same job. No racial unity until the wealth of this country is shared by all who live in it. No racial unity until a rugby team rises that has black majority in it, like the country we live in. When you are done celebrating here, go outside and celebrate the statue of Louis Botha. Go and celebrate the Stradom Square. Go sing the stem. Go fly the apartheid flag. Send your children to Jan van Riebeck School down the road. Do not include us, Asizi. We are the generation of roads must fall. We are the generation of the stem must fall. We are the generation that is refusing the emotional abuse that our parents went through. We are the generation that will say without a shadow of doubt, without any apology, that the Boke must fall. It is a white supremacist sign that belongs in the dustbin of history. So there is no stronger together. Our message is, black people, you are on your own. There are no ways to unite with us in landlessness, in informal settlements. Do not force black people to celebrate people who humiliate them. The Springbok must fall. Asijiki.
Thank you. The Honorable Buthelezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Order.
All of us in this House can agree that the freedom we enjoy today came at a price. When we managed to negotiate our transition with a little bloodshed and stand the world over in making what was believed by many to be impossible possible, all our people came together united behind the principles of reconciliation. We knew then that it was indeed going to be a process. Building up, reconciling with our past and championing social cohesion, building togetherness among our divided people is the process of reconciliation. It cannot be described in a single event or in a single moment. Honorable Speaker, we have witnessed and experienced togetherness and cherished moments of victory, despite our hardship, politically, socially, and economically, in our Rugby World Cup victories in 1995 and 2007, and in hosting the World and showcasing our diverse and rich history in 2010 World Cup, sadly after which for many years we have seemed to be lost our way. We owe it to our national rugby team in 2019 who have single-handedly marked the near end of this year on a victorious high. We have seen in the past few days alone how many South Africans yearn for a moment to come together and unite in their support behind our national team and wave our flag patriotically and with enthusiasm, as we all could once again say, we are proudly South African. Let us be reminded, Honorable Speaker, that and be grateful that such moments of victory will forever be recorded in our country's history, and that we hold on to what we promised ourselves in ensuring that the process of reconciliation will be an ongoing process. South Africa is indeed stronger when we come together. We are better off united than apart. We show the world before and beyond their doubts that we are a nation committed to build a home for all of us. We know fully well, Honorable Speaker, that we can achieve any goal we set for ourselves when we lift each other up through the times of down and hold each other through the times of good. Honorable Speaker, we must, like in the rugby, we must commit ourselves to focus in the scrum as we come together as a cohesive force against all odds we still face as a nation and as a continent. South Africa, which is geographically located at the bottom of Africa as a continent, this victory is actually teaching us as members of this House that we are holding on our shoulders the rest of our continent, so we dare not fail. We salute our team, we are behind them, and this is what South Africa needs going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Jordan.
Agbare Speaker, ek was 9 jaar oud toe die Bokke die 95 Wêreldbeker gewen het en ek sal nooit die uitdrukking op my pa se gesig vergeet nie. Ek onthou dat ek gedink het die Bokke is die beste span en Suid-Afrika is die beste land in die wêreld. Die trots op daardie oorwinning is 'n gevoel wat baie van ons duidelik steeds onthou en tot vandag toe deel. Baie het egter in die tussentyd gebeur en die gevoel van trots op Suid-Afrika wat die beste land in die wêreld was, het saam met die waarde van die rand en die inkrimping van die ekonomie gedaal. Dit het 'n plek gemaak tesame met die stygende werkloosheidskoers, hemelhoë misdaadsyfers en stygende inflasie vir 'n groeiende gevoel van hopeloosheid, woede vir 'n regering wat nie ons land behoorlik regeer nie en 'n magteloosheid wat met armoede en swak dienslewering gepaard gaan. Maar die krag van sport, agbare Speaker, moet nooit onderskat word nie. Want dit is met sport waar ons oor verskeie grense heen kan verenig, agter een span of deelnemer, onderhewig aan een stel reëls en met een doel voor oë om te wen. Die manne en vroue wat ons krygers is, die wat namens ons op die sportveld of baan oorlog maak, is die werklike helde, omdat hulle juist dit doen. Hulle verenig ons op 'n gelyke speelveld. Therefore, the debt we owe to Captain Siya Kolisi and his team is not a small one. We thank them and congratulate him and his men. The Springboks have yet again, as in 1995, succeeded in uniting a nation that was so deeply divided that we forgot our pride as South Africans. We forgot that there is hope and strength in who we are as a nation. The single greatest achievement of the World Cup Springbok team, aside from bringing home the Webb Ellis Trophy, was showing us that we can indeed unite in our diversity. We, as a diverse nation with different races and many different cultures, languages and religions, can indeed unite in diversity. Sia, Faf, Bongi, Eben, Lucanio, RG, Pieter Steff, Mapimpi, Kitshoff, Coach Rassi and the rest of the team have proven that if we work together, listen to each other, respect each other's differences and build on our strengths rather than our weaknesses, we can win. We can be stronger together and we can make a success of this country. Uniting a nation is, however, a very heavy burden to bear. And though there is no doubt about the boys in green and gold strength, we cannot allow them to bear this burden alone. It is our turn now to lift the responsibility of building towards a better South Africa, together with Siya Kolisi and his team, just as he lifted the Webb Ellis Trophy in Yokohama after the final. The Springboks have done their part, and they have executed their role brilliantly. It is our turn now as ordinary South Africans to take up the responsibility of nation building towards a country that we can be proud of. We can start as Parliament by setting an example of mutual respect, of embracing and respecting each other's differences and working to improve on our strengths rather than our weaknesses. This means that statements such as congratulations to Siya Kolisi, the rest go get your congratulations from Prince Harry, and whatever happened here now is not acceptable and gets a red card. As jy nie mooi speel nie, Honourable Ndlozi, mag jy nie speel nie. Unlike the Springboks, history will be judging you harshly. Ons moet nou hierdie verantwoordelikheid van nasiebou oorneem. Ons moet ophou om mekaar op die baadjie te takseer en mekaar respekteer vir wie ons is. Ons moet ophou om breë aannames te maak en te veralgemeen oor wie ons dink mekaar is. Ons moet ons skoene as 'n trotse nasie vol staan. Ons moet ons regering aanspreeklik hou vir die manier waarop hulle ons belastinggeld bestee. Ons moet verantwoordbaarheid, behoorlike bestuur en goeie gesonde kernbeginsels op elke vlak van regering vereis. Ons moet nou bou aan 'n toekoms vir ons kinders. Ons moet nou regmaak wat gebreek is, voor dit te laat is. Hierdie is ons eindstryd. Ons moet wen. Ek dank u.
Thank you. The Honourable Meshu.
Honourable Speaker, the ACDP would like to repeat our message of congratulations to the Springboks for beating England with a wide margin of 32-12 to win the Rugby World Cup in Japan. This was an incredible victory and would not have been possible without the effort of the whole team who worked together as one. This said, I also want to pay special tribute to 3 outstanding team members. Firstly, a special word of thanks goes to our inspirational captain, Siya Kolisi. Besides the fact that he's the first black captain that Springboks ever had, his outstanding leadership, both on and off the field, has been exemplary. Worth noting is his advice to young aspirant rugby players, particularly those from poor backgrounds, to have goals while believing that all things are possible. Captain Siya Kolisi gave another inspiring message after winning the People's Choice Sports Star Award at the South African Sports Award in Durban on Sunday night. He is reported to have said, and I quote, "We are such a beautiful country. When we decide on a goal or dream, as a nation, we can achieve it. Our team is diverse. We have got different backgrounds and races, and we decided to fight for one common thing. We can also do it in life and business. We just have to put our egos aside and fight for what is right so that South Africa can be better." Close quote. This is why I was so disappointed by Dr. Ndlosi's divisive tweet when he congratulated Siya Kolisi for the victory, but said the rest of the players should go to Prince Harry for their congratulations. I want to appeal to Dr. Ndlosi to join the nation for once and congratulate the entire Springbok team. The only team to have won every World Cup final they have played in. This amazing victory, sir, was an important victory for all South Africans. That's why all South Africans must rally in congratulating them. The second person I want to mention by name is a great tactician, Coach Rassie Erasmus, whose game plan ultimately outsmarted the tactics of England's coach, Eddie Jones. It was great to see how Rassie motivated and transformed our rugby team in just 18 months to make them World Cup rugby champions. The third person is Magazole Mapimpi, who also comes from humble beginnings. He enjoyed a great tournament and made history when he became the first South African to score a try in a Rugby World Cup final. His brilliance helped the team to victory. South Africans are stronger and will be unbeatable if we continue to stand together. To Mabogabog, we say, we salute you, you our team, and the Lord bless you for all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Holomisa.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members, as a nation we are experiencing a wave of unity and harmony as a result of the win that the Springboks had in the Rugby World Cup of 2019. For this we are grateful, and may God help us to sustain this atmosphere. To Rassie, you have stayed your course and forged a team of men who had the heart and the skill to bring home the Webb Ellis Trophy. Thank you. To the Springbok management and support personnel, we say a job well done. Without you, our boys would not have been able to perform as well as they did. To Siya and the rest of the team, you have captured this nation's imagination. Thank you for raising our hopes and making us proud. Honorable members, before our players went onto the field, President Ramaphosa gave the squad a motivational talk. Later on, when I met him just before the game started, we had a laugh when I said to him, I hope that the Buffalo did not intimidate the Springboks too much. Sport, both in terms of participation and the support of our teams, can help to generate revenue, create jobs, and promote social cohesion. We must learn from countries like Australia. Honorable members, we would therefore be well advised to create a sports agency to coordinate the various sports codes in terms of facilities, especially in rural areas and townships, as well as identify the latent talent and developing the potential of our sportsmen and women. This task cannot be left in the hands of the bureaucrats. We say thank you to Japan and her people for hosting a successful World Rugby Cup tournament. Having been in Japan for the final, I was touched that the Japanese people lent Nkosi Sikelel' Africa a truly remarkable feat of a model nation. Another phenomenon that struck me is the absence of dustbins, but there is absolutely no litter. Each person takes responsibility for their own rubbish. They take ownership. This is a trait that South Africans can study and emulate. Their motor industry is based on homemade goods. How I wish that we could create jobs by making parts of that industry as we have the raw materials. Finally, just one last thought. I would behoove South Africa to enter into bilateral agreements with Japan to train entrepreneurs and owners of small of SMEs. I thank you.
Thank you, General. The Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Speaker. In the early 90s, Utata Udumile Qeqe built a stadium in Zwide, Port Elizabeth, with the hope that he will mentor and guide future stars, also keep the children away from mischievous acts on the streets. Little did he know that one of the children who used to train at his tracks would rise to be the standing captain of the Springboks. Rugby has been accepted as part of the culture and identity in many townships across our country. In that light, I'd like to direct our attention to the national women's rugby team that needs sponsorships, transformation in policies that still lean more towards the men. They need to get the support as far as media attention and broadcasting. More than ever, they need the support of this House. The development of women's sports must be a matter of national priority, where our teams are able to be capacitated enough to compete with other national teams. Continued investment in women's sporting codes may as well assist in many gaps identified in South African communities. We have an opportunity again to celebrate in 2021 when the Springbok women win the Women's Rugby World Cup, which will be hosted in New Zealand. ATM therefore stands to say we can, Ubabala Lacha, who's the captain of the women's Springbok rugby team, just like Usia Kolisi, can make the country proud again in 2021. For you who may not know, the women's rugby team is predominantly black as per the demographics of our country. We congratulate the Springboks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand here before you, Honorable Speaker, a very, very proud South African. Indeed, our Springboks have made us proud, and I think we should all rally behind them. Now, Honorable Speaker, we must admit that the odds were against the Springbok side. Many other countries have written us off before the World Cup. But yes, indeed, I must admit that I know nothing about rugby other than it's a game of bashing each other, wounding them. But yes, indeed, this was one time I watched for 80 minutes. I was not willing to get off my seat supporting the Springboks. And like that, I think 57 million people rallied behind our Springboks. And I think we need to be proud of that. Now, yes, I think Honorable Ndlozi is correct when he says, black people, you are on your own. Because Honorable Ndlozi, the clothes he wears come from white companies. The car that he drives come from white companies. The money he steals come from the poorest, from VBS Bank, of the pension money of the black community. So yes, indeed, the blacks are on their own. There is no doubt about that. Now let me tell you, the one thing that we all forgot on this day was hatred. We forgot about race, we forgot about gender. We all came together as a united South Africa, standing together behind our people. And let me remind Honorable Ndlozi, behind the very successful captain that you are talking about, let me give you the name of Hilton and Kendra Houghton. Yes, indeed, they were whites that believed in him, that identified him, and worked with him into making him the leader he is today. Let me also tell you, Paul van der Berg also played a role in his success, and so did Rassie Erasmus, played a role in the success of our captain and the Springbok team. So let us leave race out of this, but celebrate a victory as one united nation. We have seen this in the previous Rugby World Cup, we've seen it in the Cricket World Cups, we've seen it in the African Cup of Nations. How our success has united us all as South Africans. Let us take advantage of that and let us go forward with the difficulties and the differences we had. There is an opportunity by these sportsmen of ours and sportswomen, not forgetting the South African netball team, who can unite us and bring us into one nation with one purpose, is to create a better life for all of us. Congratulations to the Springboks, congratulations to the entire team, to their families and their friends in the role they have played in the success of Springbok and making us South African proud. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Nchaisa.
Sharp. Honorable Madam Speaker, let me also congratulate our rugby team on making South Africa a 3 times champion. 1995, 2007, and this year 2019. The boys' victory affirms our commitment to social cohesion and nation building. The spirit of sportsmanship and togetherness is pervading the whole of South Africa. Amabhokobhoko has just become the pride of our nation. As we chanted and sang in unison, we marked an important era in our nation. This victory has left an indelible mark on our minds, an excellent and a remarkable achievement we shall always enjoy. It is true, therefore, that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. It is a lifetime prize for South Africa. We are coming very far. The racial sport who are here today, that should be appreciated. The unity of purpose, that determination to transcend race without losing our uniqueness, to savor the moment without being petty, demonstrated to the world our unique stature and resilience to Azalian people. A victory that has made even the criminals to be excited and forget about killing and raping people. We cannot underplay the role of sport as an overarching unifier of the nation's blueprint. We celebrate South Africans who have not dignified the doomsayers' divisive rants, a sign that majority of them are committed to non-racial enterprise. It is fitting, therefore, to say, Viva Sia, Viva Rasi, Viva Mapimpi, Viva Mapogopogo, Viva South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Madisha.
Thank you very much. It is in circumstances such as this that I remember the second president of our country. I here refer to the democratic South Africa, President Mbeki, who stood on this very platform. Madiba was seated there, and Mbeki said, I am an African. And the majority of the people throughout our country and beyond our seas rose and clapped hands, because he further went on and said, through the words that he uttered, he had a dream. And that dream was to take us back to 1955, when the people of our country said, we are Africans, we are united, we may be white in skin color, We may be black in skin color, but we are Africans from South Africa. In this Springbok, a play and one that we had, there are other African people in skin color that were able to score. It was not only Esia, but then you look at the Allende, you look at Kolbe, you look at Mapimpi. Those people were able to deliver tries. And we, of course, rose and said, we are Africans. There, it was not only those of us who are pitch black, or those of us who are lighter in skin color. All of us rose and said, we are Africans. I therefore want to say that we, as the leaders, as representatives of the people of our country, need to be united. Just like the people of South Africa, all of them were united to say, we are Africans, we are one, let's move forward and achieve that which we have fought for, that which we died for, that which we went to jails for, so that indeed we can rise like we are seated here as one. We are Africans. So Springbok, we want to thank them for everything. They have helped us to arrive where we are at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Siabi.
Re a leboga mo speaker. Mo presidente wa Maloba Morena Mandela o ile a bolela a re, sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Ke tsopotse. Kolisi siya le yena o be a kitima le naga ya Afrika Borwa. Anje a goeletša a re, ke a tsopola, stronger together, ke tsopotše. Se se ra gore, tau tša tlhoka seboka di šitwa ke nare e tlhotša. Mokgatlo wa modimo le badimo le batho, African National Congress, le ona o ile wa bolela go tloga kgale wa re, together we can take South Africa forward. Se ke se mokgatlo wa African National Congress o be o tloga o se labalabela. Naga ye ya Afrika Borwa, beke tše mmalwa tše di fetileng, e tlogile e bontšha gore tau tša tlhoka seboka di šitwa ke nare o tlotša. Gomme seboka ke sona se se ka re išang pele. Mang le mang wa ba tsogile borokong matšatši a mmalwa a fetileng, o tla ba a bone gore batho ba Afrika Borwa ba ile ba ikgafa, bangwe dikeledi di rotha e le ge ba bona naga ya bona e mpšha ka baka la seo di Springbok ba se dirilego. United we stand, divided we fall. If we carry on with the spirit that was displayed in the last few weeks when the Springboks were displaying their quality scrum, we would take this country far. Together we can build this country. A re lebogiše mapokopoko, re re forward we go. Re a leboga.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, that concludes the tributes to the Springboks. The next item on the order paper is a motion in the name of the Honorable J.S. Malema.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Let's deal with real issues. The draft resolution notes on the 6th September 2019, one of the most visionary and the bravest of leaders produced by the African anti-colonial liberation movement, Mr. Robert Gabriel Mugabe, the former president of Zimbabwe, passed on. Further notes that the President Robert Mugabe was devoted, Pan-Africanist, a principled revolutionary, with unwavering commitment to the cause for the liberation of Africa and development of the African continent in a manner that puts African people first. Acknowledge that he stands head and shoulder above the rest in his commitment to resolve the timeless question of the return of the African land back to African people, of the use of African wealth for the development of Africa. Realize that the fast-track land reform program in Zimbabwe remains the lodestar for all those still fighting for the return of the land. Further acknowledges that in his lifetime, he faced unimaginable attacks in the quest for the return of the land to the African people, and that Zimbabwe was punished for daring to redefine itself as a sovereign nation, and send its condolences to the family of Robert Mugabe and to the people of Zimbabwe, for whom Mugabe gave all his life. For this motion, we want to argue that, Honorable Speaker, we are here as this generation of economic freedom fighters, the inheritors of the legacy of courage, of resilience, of unwavering commitment to principle, of unconditional love for the African people, left for us by the special generation of African leaders who fought against colonialism and defeated it. They ushered a spirit of hope, an affirmation of our humanity as African people, and guarded with their lives our sovereignty as people. Robert Gabriel Mugabe was one of the distinguished African leaders who sacrificed their youth for the emancipation of all Africans, for the restoration of our right to humanity denied over generations by the colonialist forces. We withstood untold humiliation at the hands of white people who stand here today and lecture us about human rights, who want to tell us how to feel about the pain they caused us, who have the guts to prescribe to us what racism is and what is not. President Mugabe spent over a decade jailed by colonialists for fighting for African people. The majority of white people, colonialists, have no moral authority to say anything about President Mugabe. They have no moral authority to impose their twisted conception of what an African state should be run like on anyone. When President Mugabe and the people of Zimbabwe finally defeated the evil regime of Ian Smith, they were not thirsty for vengeance. They accepted that the white settlers community had made Zimbabwe a home. All they wanted was an equitable redistribution of Zimbabwe's wealth and the return of the land to the Zimbabwean people. For over 2 decades, President Mugabe and the people of Zimbabwe patiently waited for the settler community and Britain to reciprocate their kindness and return back to the Zimbabweans the land stolen during colonialism. They thought they were dealing with people who were interested in the future well-being of Zimbabwe, people who knew that justice had to be done in Zimbabwe. They were wrong. The British government and its British settler community in Zimbabwe were never interested in justice. They were only interested in maintaining the privileges colonialism bestowed upon them. They were never saw African people as equal human beings who can govern their own affairs. This is still the case in Zimbabwe, as it is the case in South Africa. If you dare touch the privilege of colonialism, which bestowed upon settler minority the right to dominate a native majority, you better be prepared for the full might of racist global institutions. All the trouble of Zimbabwe therefore started when Zimbabweans began taking back their land, and the white world stood up and vowed to punish President Mugabe and all Zimbabweans for daring to take back what rightfully belongs to them. Despite this coordinated assault on the sovereignty of Zimbabwe, President Mugabe stood firm with extraordinary resolve to defend his nation. This courage, this unbending determination will inspire us for generations to come. We now know that once we start shaking the foundation upon which our suffering is based, those who benefited from our suffering will unleash their evil power on us. We will remain unshaken like President Mugabe. This parliament, as a product of the struggle of independence of people across the continent, must honor President Mugabe, and on behalf of the people of the country, send our deepest condolences to the people of Zimbabwe and the family of President Mugabe. We must say to the wife of President Mugabe, she must remain strong and protect the legacy of her husband, because we know that there are opportunists even amongst the ranks of the ruling party in Zimbabwe who want to destroy the legacy of President Mugabe. The younger generation must learn from President Mugabe that we must never worship whiteness. We must never seek to be like them. We must seek to be better than them. We must produce the type of a young cadre who will be able to lead Africa and South Africa in particular to progress and redistribute land to our people. The expropriation of land without compensation must remain a priority to all of us. Anyone who apologizes for demanding land back is a coward and is selling out the legacy of the giants who came before us. Those who were tortured, those who were imprisoned, those who were harassed, even when they were facing death, they were never scared to say they demand freedom in their lifetime. They delivered freedom. What we can do to our generation and in honor of the generation that gave us freedom is to fight for the return of the land and the wealth stolen from us by the beneficiaries of colonialism and the children of criminals which landed in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Maswanganyi.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament. We are gathered here today to join the people of Zimbabwe in paying tribute to a warrior, gallant fighter, tried and tested cadre, President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. Honorable Speaker, allow me to preface my tribute by quoting an African proverb: until lions tell their own stories, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. Meaning that we as Africans, who are the victims of slavery, torture, killing, and land dispossession, do not tell our stories or write our own history. The former colonizer will always be the heroes. Unless we have our own storyteller, the oppressors will always have the best part of history. To free ourselves from oppression, we must tell our history. African history has been told and written from the dominating oppressor's perspective in such a way that the victims' voices are silenced. Our duty is to tell the African story of African civilization, slavery, colonization, apartheid, exploitation of our natural resources. The effect of colonialism is to annihilate people's belief in their heritage struggles and heroes. We will never allow our former oppressors to tell the story about our heroes and President Mugabe in particular. We are tasked by history not to let the lies spoken about our fallen heroes and President Mugabe in particular to be distorted. We owe it to them, the liberation movement, and the people of Zimbabwe. President Mugabe was born on the 21st of February 1924, Kutama, Zimbabwe. He led ZANU, a trained teacher who studied at Fort Hare. Mugabe battled against torture, prison, and banishment designed to weaken him and the ZANU-PF as a liberation movement of the people. A true people's organization, loyal to the great principles which inspires its creation and have guided it to liberation of Zimbabwe. He was imprisoned by the racist Iron Smith regime from 1964 to 1974. His wife was arrested and his child died while he was in prison. He was a tried and tested Pan-Africanist, committed to the unity and liberation of Africa. He drew strength and courage from the deep well, which gave him strength to lead the people's resistance and racial tyranny. He taught his people not to fear the oppressor, however powerful they might seem. We remember the revolutionary life of President Robert Mugabe and send our collective condolences to his family and the people of Zimbabwe. The story of the revolutionary of Comrade Mugabe is the story of the struggle of African people in their quest to be free. It is the story of the triumph of human spirit against injustices and subjugation. His relationship with the ANC started at the University College of Fort Hare in the 1950s. In his own words, he said, I quote, "Fort Hare transformed me, defining my African identity and African personality," close quote. He has participated in the activities of the ANC Youth League in Fort Hare alongside Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Dumanokwe, Joe Matthews, and others, and at one stage decided to boycott the visit by the Governor General of Fort Hare. It was in Fort Hare that the ideas of African nationalism were inculcated in the minds of young activists, to whom President Mugabe was one of them. During the years of struggle for liberation, the solidarity of people of South Africa and Zimbabwe were solidified in the Wanki and Sipolilo campaigns. The Zimbabwean patriots, through their armed forces, ZIPRA, fought side by side with Umkhonto we Sizwe combatants against the tyrannical regime of Ian Smith and apartheid regime in South Africa. He played a critical role in the merger of ZAPU and ZANU to form the ZANU-PF. The liberation of Zimbabwe and other countries in the region paved the way for a possible liberation of South Africa. President Mugabe played a critical role in the transformation of the then frontline states, which is called SADC today, which was to focus on the economic development of our region. We are highlighting this point to demonstrate the Pan-Africanist commitment of President Mugabe. President Mugabe knew it as he was convinced of the certainty of our victory, that the historic and urgent issue of the day in Southern Africa was the question of the transfer of power to the people. Some years ago, the people of Zimbabwe, under the leadership of President Mugabe, decided to advance with their land reform program. This has raised a number of responses from around the world, with some of the Western forces putting Zimbabwe under difficult circumstances through sanctions. As South Africans, we will never be threatened by any force to expropriate land without compensation. We will learn from the mistakes and the good that the Zimbabweans have done. His monumental legacy will inspire the current and the future generations. Despite a protracted economic crisis, Zimbabwe's education has retained its ranking amongst the best in African report by UNESCO that put Zimbabwe's literacy at around 90%. Today, we join the people of Zimbabwe under President Mnangagwa to call for the lifting of sanctions on Zimbabwe, which has done more harm to the people and the economy of Zimbabwe. Our approach, hey, former colonizers, keep quiet. You were fighting against us with Ian Smith yourselves.
Honorable Maswanganyi, Honorable Maswanganyi, you will not point members with your fingers, please.
No.
Thank you.
Our approach, our approach to this again will be guided by our principle that the problems of Zimbabwe will be solved by Zimbabweans and themselves and through multilateral platforms like SADC and the AU. When Mugabe departed, he was at peace because he had returned land to the people. What we are also going to do here in South Africa as the ANC to return land to our people. He joins, President Mugabe joins the list of martyrs of our revolution who continue to be the stars that continue to guide our revolutionary path. We dare not to forget them. Today, he walks in the company of Joshua Nkomo, Josiah Tongagara, Sifiso Dabengwa, Solomon Mujuru, Herbert Chitepo, and other fallen heroes. Rest in peace, Gushungo, Pambili Ngohondo, Pambili Chimrenga, Asante Sana.
Asante. The Honorable Kachalia.
In 1988, when the Honorable Malema, whose hero the late Robert Mugabe is, was but 6 years old, I traveled to Harare to commemorate the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at a concert featuring many international luminaries. Little did I know at that very time that Mugabe's 5th Brigade henchmen were busy indiscriminately massacring 20,000 of his Matabele compatriots. The 5th Brigade was different from all other Zimbabwean army units. It was directly subordinate to the Prime Minister's office and not integrated into the army structures, the normal structures. They conducted public executions in Matabele land. Victims were forced often to dig their own graves in front of family and fellow villagers. I had no idea that this man who fought an illegitimate racist regime and laid solid foundations in the nation's education was also laying the basis of a corrupt and venal state. The famed reference by Tacitus to Rome's enemies is apposite here. He said, "These plunderers of the world, after exhausting the land by their devastations, are rifling the ocean, stimulated by avarice, to ravage, to slaughter, to usurp, under false titles they call empire, and where they make a desert, they call it peace. But peace it is not, under the jackboot of oppression, under the guise of anti-colonialism, under the fig leaf that covered theft and fostered undeserving elites. All courtesy of Mugabe's whim and fiat, spanning some 39 uninterrupted years. Zimbabweans now live in fear." This is the textbook definition of tyranny, as Iskala said, whose words Mugabe would have recognized being a scholar of some significance, "A tyrant's trust dishonors those who earn it." And yes, the worst kind of tyrant is often the one who was once the victim. Mugabe suffered. He fought and he helped deliver freedom for the people of Rhodesia. But to his opponents, he was a tyrant who imposed a national socialist regime, governed by a central committee and a Politburo that brooked no dissent. To his supporters, he was a revolutionary and an anti-imperialist hero. He was the embodiment of 20th century African nationalism, but the cold lens of history showed he ruled over Zimbabwe for nearly 4 decades and left a legacy dominated by murder, bloodshed, torture, persecution of political opponents, intimidation, and vote rigging on a grand scale. He provides the textbook example of the perils of many national liberation movements have visited on people hungry for dignity and a shared humanity, that binds instead of destroying, that builds instead of sowing the seeds of discord and deprivation. This is no time for mealy-mouthed condolences. If Mugabe's death is to be remembered, let it be a beacon that warns against the path he trod, that others appear to follow. The madness of rampant status control, the fostering of rent-seeking elites, the dispossession of private property, the perils of profligacy, tit-for-tat racism, and the impoverishment of a nation, a desert in the making that some have the temerity to call peace. The only peace that exists in Mugabe's legacy is propped up by fear and fed by hunger. The descent into the morass of failure was relentless for a country that used to be the jewel in Africa, to be carefully preserved, as former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere, architect of another parched landscape, advised Mugabe. with a prosperous agricultural sector and a manufacturing industry contributing 25% to GDP, Zimbabwe inherited a relatively modern economy, which, despite being rooted in the supremacy of the white settlers, was amongst the most advanced in the region. Almost 40 years later, the only jewels left are those made from the country's rich diamond fields and traded in Antwerp via undisclosed deals at the expense of ordinary Zimbabweans. Ordinary Zimbabweans subsist on informal activities such as petty trade and artisanal mining, on shrinking incomes and an acute cash crisis shaking the banking sector, with millions facing food and nutrition insecurity, a veritable desert. This is the shameful legacy of Robert Gabriel Mugabe. At his inauguration, he said, "Tomorrow we shall cease to be men and women of the past and become men and women of the future." The events that have prevailed in Zimbabwe since have made a complete mockery of that speech. Today, the messiahs have turned into persecutors, outdoing the colonial regimes they ousted. So if we consider the life of Mugabe, let's heed the warnings his life has provided and say, it's time to say thus far and no further. Why? Because some appear to be cut from the same cloth as their erstwhile hero. And it is incumbent, therefore, on us to ring out the warnings from the Latin phrase, laetet anguis in herba, beware, there are snakes in the grass. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Mishwe.
Speaker, on behalf of the ACDP, I wish to offer my condolences to the family and the people of Zimbabwe on the passing away of former Zimbabwean President, the late Robert Gabriel Mugabe. It is widely agreed that Mr. Mugabe started his presidency relatively well in a country that was prospering and was at peace, to the extent that it had come to be known as the breadbasket of Africa. Things started to deteriorate when the late Morgan Tsvangirai and associates formed Movement for Democratic Change that opposed some of his dictatorial tendencies and divisive policies they believed would destroy the economy and the relative peace Zimbabwe had. Speaker, I will not dwell much on the political intolerance and regime of brutality that ensued and changed the course of history in Zimbabwe until the late Mr. Mugabe was deposed by the army in a well-coordinated bloodless coup last year. What I would like to highlight are two positive things from which many Zimbabweans credit Mr. Mugabe. Firstly, he is applauded by Zimbabweans for the education he gave them, one of the best on the continent. In an opinion piece written by Professor Jonathan Johnson entitled, "South Africa Can Learn a Thing or Two from Zimbabwe's Education System," he wrote, and I quote, "As the regime of Robert Mugabe crumbled unexpectedly before our very eyes, I could not help but recall why I left my university in California to do my doctoral field in rural Zimbabwe about a decade after the end of white rule," close quote. He continued to say, and I quote again, "To this day, top universities send their marketing personnel to Zimbabwe to recruit talented students. Zimbabwean teachers in South Africa make a significant contribution to science and mathematics achievements in townships and rural schools. Their students not only graduate from our universities, they often excel with distinction," close quote. The ACDP concurs with Professor Johnson and encourages government to review the abysmal state of education in this country and learn from the strong Zimbabwe education model. The second positive that many Zimbabweans still speak about is that they were taught the value of hard work, rather than becoming dependent on the state to provide for their basic needs. It has been said that many of our hotels and restaurants prefer to hire Zimbabweans not because of their willingness to accept lower salaries, but because, and mainly because of their stronger work ethic. I recently read of primary school children in a rural area of Zimbabwe who were involved in projects to keep their community clean. They don't complain when they have to pick up litter because they are taught to take pride in keeping their community clean. This, I believe, South Africa can learn from, and is part of the good things they say Mr. Mugabe left for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Holomisa.
Mhlala ngaphambili namalungu abekekileyo ale ndlu yowiso-mthetho. Sithi egameni le-UDM thuthwini kubantu baseZimbabwe nakwifemeli kaTata uMgabe. Ngexesha ndandisaphethe ndizibeke ngenkani phofu kuloo minyaka. Ndaba nethamsanqa lokokuba ndimenywe eSwaziland kuyobekwa ukumkani lo ukhoyo ngokweking kwi-coronation yakhe kuloo minyaka. Nda-introducwa ke nguking lukhoyo kwi-leaders e-frontline states apho ke ndathi ndadibana notata lo. Ukusukela ngoko ke simane sidibana kwii-functions okanye kwii-conferences. Ngumntu njengoba kusitshiwo unobuntu ufundile. Kangoba xa sidibene beya athi andibalisele ngeentsomi zabo zase-Alice noba babesenza ntoni bejikeleza kwelali ezalali bekhangela izinto abacinga bazingabaphilisa. So lilonke ke sithi noko le ndoda isebenzile yona inazo ingxakani benazo njengaye wonke umuntu akonkokheli ngenangxaki. Sonke siyafana sizinkokheli sine-mistakes zethu. So kodwa ke yena into esizawuthi simkhumbule ngayo yile bithethwa apha ngutata uMeshu yemfundo. Ndithethile no-commander okanye i-leader ye-Zebra Forces, one of the generals. Ndibuza uba kwakutheni ze kwenzeke laa nto eMatabeleland. Wayibeka kakuhle into kokuba abantu abasarawunde utata uMgabe ezo generals ke zizwe ezaba ne-influence erongo kudeske kubekho le tension yayikhona phakathi konkomo naye eyabangela uba kusweleka abantu. Ezo zinto ezo azibhalwa kakuhle kuba nangoku wafumanisa kwezi nkokheli izinto ezanikhokhela. Umuntu nimvotele good but ufumanisa aba basarawunde yena bahijacka le project. So lilonke sithi tata uMgabe uphumle. Wandinceda ke uba naye ngoku wandivulela iminyango. Ndawungena ko-Angola ndawubona uDos Santos. Ndawungena eZambia ndawubona uKK. Ndawungena eUganda ndawubona uMseveni. Sithetha ngokukhulula uMzantsi Afrika makwedini. Hayi le nto niyenzayo ngokuyotya imali. Yes.
Thank you. The Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Speaker. Namhlanje sibona ama-Afrika siphinde sifumane ukuba ngobani abantu who are not African. Kuba umuntu ongum-Afrika uyayazi ukuba xa umuntu eswelekile awuthethi kakubi ngaye. Uthetha kakuhle. Kuba uzama ubonisa abantu kuba mabazama uemulate izinto ezilungileyo ezinhle ezenziweyo. So as the ATM, we pay our respects to a fearless servant of Zimbabwe, a servant of Africa who is respected and admired all over the continent. Ugushungo led his people and freed them from the colonial and oppressive British government. He made sure Zimbabwe broke free from the colonial Rhodesia. In our country, we are still stuck on our colonial name, as well as the apartheid economic, social, and cultural structure. It is as if leaders of our country are fearful of our colonizers and oppressors. The best condolence we can give for President Mugabe is to assist the people of Zimbabwe to overcome the challenges they face. Today, Zimbabwe can build its economy. It needs its own political will and an end to political meddling. South Africa must assist Zimbabwe so it's profitable for Zimbabweans to stay in Zimbabwe. As we all know, no one aspires to be displaced from their home country. South Africa, SADC, and the AU must reinforce the structures for development of all regions in Africa. The sanctions have destroyed the lives of the people of Zimbabwe, therefore must be lifted. However, the sanctions imposed on the administration personnel because of the crimes they've committed against the people of Zimbabwe must be upheld. South Africa must aid the people of Zimbabwe, not certain political parties. The corrupt Zimbabwe politicians must be refused to invest in our country. Similarly, South African politicians must declare their business interest in Zimbabwe. They must not use their political positions to advance the business interests at the expense of Zimbabweans. South Africa must be there for its neighbor and assist the country in these difficult times. We need a stable Zimbabwe for a stronger Africa. Rest in peace, Kushungo.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, allow me to express our condolences to his wife and children of the former President, Robert Mugabe. Now, Honorable Speaker, allow me to start off by saying, and I quote from the late Honorable Mugabe, which was in the 26th of September in 2007. And I quote, "Let Mr. Bush read history correctly. Let him realize that both personally and in his representative capacity as the current President of the United States, he stands for this civilization which occupied, which colonized, which incarcerated, which killed. He has much to atone for and very little to lecture us on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. His hands drip with innocent blood of many nationalities," unquote. Now, Honorable Speaker, the late Robert Mugabe was demonized by the colonialists. They rejected him as a political leader. He was branded a terrorist. He was even jailed for over 10 years. He was not even allowed to bury his son. Whilst negotiations were taking place in the Lancaster conference, they went out there together with the help of colonial South Africa, and they've targeted and bombed many of the areas in the neighboring states where they had they were planning and preparing an onslaught into Rhodesia. Now, I think we must admit that under Mugabe, and I think even South Africa suffers today, and have not achieved what Robert Mugabe achieved in Zimbabwe, particularly in terms of, and I think Honorable Malema is correct, if you look at the issue of education, where he took them from 45% right to 80% literacy. And I think if you go back to some of the quotations of President Mugabe, he always put emphasis on education, because he said that it is, if you do not have education, you will not be able to succeed in anything in the world. So I think we must be mindful of the fact that President Robert Mugabe played a pivotal role in the liberation of the people of Zimbabwe from the apartheid Rhodesia in those years. And I think he's paid a price for it. You know, he spent many, many years in jail, as we all are aware of that. Now, he once said that your key to success is education. It is better to have education than to be surrounded by poor graduates and rich criminals. So you can see the emphasis that he's actually put. Now, one of the reasons why Zimbabwe is in the state that it is today is because of the sanctions, particularly with the role that the United States and the British have played in ensuring there is no success in Zimbabwe. So let us not entirely push the blame onto Zimbabwe and President Mugabe for the state of it, but let us acknowledge the role that he played in liberating the people in Zimbabwe. Our condolences go to his family, friends, and particularly to all those who currently supported him all, and still believe in his leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Gallo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Paying homage to a controversial leader like President Robert Mugabe is daunting to any person who has cared to interrogate his legacy. The living dead, in terms of the African traditions, are never to be spoken ill of. We can, however, talk about President Mugabe's legacy. Let us start with the Kukurera Hundi massacre of the Ndebele civilians, which was carried out by the Zimbabwean National Army from early 1983 to late 1987, where over 30,000 people were brutally killed under the blatant command of President Mugabe. In this regard, we are calling upon President Emmerson Mnangagwa to establish the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to bring the perpetrators to book. He led the dual role of transforming the economy of Zimbabwe and providing quality education. He regrettably also led a dual role of destroying the same economy, as well as trampling on human rights of the Zimbabwean people. By aligning himself to the Pan-Africanist agenda, President Mugabe assisted many APLA comrades and combatants. This is the leaf we take out of his political life, his commitment to Pan-Africanism. In the latter years of his life, he had started embracing accountable leadership on the continent, lashing out at the despots in the diaspora. President Mugabe's indigenization land program was pugnacious, ill-informed, and misinformed. From his life, we learn of the African leader who rose to prominence on the back of a struggle for his people, but had his political life cut short because of his penchant for absolute power. We wish his family well. May his soul rest in eternal peace. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Malema.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We want to take this opportunity to agree with what Comrade Maswangani said, particularly on the sanctions, that we should unite as a country and demand the imperialist forces to drop the sanctions against Zimbabwe. But we also want to make a clarion call to President Mnangagwa to allow the Zimbabwean comrades, ZANU-PF comrades who are in exile, to return back home, and that there should be a high level of political tolerance, because the disagreement should not lead to targeting and victimizing those who hold a different view. If Zimbabwe is going to succeed, all the progressive forces will have to come together in defense of what President Mugabe stood for. And we want to also avail ourselves to engage in facilitating that type of an agreement between the comrades in exile and those who remain in Zimbabwe. They are small-minded people who always get tempted to blame Comrade Grace Mugabe for whatever reasons. And we see that as a direct attack on the legacy of President Mugabe. You must have courage to confront President Mugabe and leave his wife out of your hatred of his politics. Because it is only fools who target wives when they are defeated by husbands. So you must accept that the husband defeated you when you were still alive and leave his wife and children alone. You allow them to live in Zimbabwe in peace. We don't want to wake up one morning, we are told that Grace is no longer staying in Zimbabwe because she's victimized for the political stands which were taken by the husband. I heard someone saying here, 1988, Malema was this or that age. That's a problem of ageist. You are an ageist of note, because whether I was 8 years or 6 years at a time, politically, if we were to compare what I have achieved and what you have achieved, you don't come anywhere close. You always hide behind the dress of your mother's credentials. You use your family wrongly for personal accumulation. And you always irritate us with your parents' credentials as if they are yours. They are not yours.
Point of order.
You have no credentials
Honorable
at all.
Malema, please take your seat. There is a point of order. What's your point of order, sir?
The Honorable Malema accused me of using my family's name for personal accumulation. He must withdraw.
Order, members, order. Honorable Malema, I did not hear a name. Were you referring to this honorable member?
Honorable Speaker, I never mentioned anyone. But if the shoe fits, wear it.
Please proceed.
Now, stop. You're too old, Chief. You're too old to be saying my mother, my father, this and that. Write your own history, which is going to be the ugliest history because of the side you chose.
Honorable
You will
Malema.
never have credentials close to your parents.
Honorable
You are
Malema.
nothing compared to your parents.
Honorable Malema,
Thank
your
you very
time
much.
has expired. Order, members. Order. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. I now put, order, members. I now put the motion. Are there any objections? There is an objection?
There is an objection from the DA. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The objection of the DA is noted. Is there any other objection? Honorable
Speaker,
Singh?
will you note the abstention of the IFP?
We note the abstention of the IFP. Honorable members, the...
Honorable Speaker, note please also the abstention of the ACDP. Thank you.
The abstention of the ACDP is also noted. Is there any other abstention? None. I now put the question. Order, members, order. Order. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those who are against will say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Therefore, the motion has been agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of the budgetary review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labor.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
Is there any objection to this report being adopted? None? Honorable Member?
Madam Speaker, the DA would like to make a declaration, please.
A declaration has been called for, Honorable Member. Are you also on the declaration?
Yes, yes. Speaker.
Yes, sir. The DA would like to make a declaration. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. The budgetary review and recommendation report of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour does not adequately grasp, let alone address, the monstrous magnitude of South Africa's unemployment crisis. In 1994, there were 3.6 million unemployed South Africans. In 2019, the number is over 10 million. 2 adults in every 5 cannot find work. In 1994, the official unemployment rate was 20%. Today, the rate is 29.1%, the highest in 11 years. Every single day, for the past 10 years, almost 900 South Africans joined the ranks of the unemployed, and our youth bear the brunt of it. Yet, nearly 6 months after rebranding, the Department of Employment and Labour has still not been reconfigured to tackle its expanded mandate of job creation. The department should be focusing its efforts on supporting labour-intensive sectors like light manufacturing and tourism to create new jobs and take on new workers. This is where the opportunity for growth and access to a global market of 7 billion consumers lies. Through deregulation, the department should be making it easier for business to absorb large numbers of relatively unskilled workers into productive employment in technologically advanced sectors. And it should be championing the cause of small business owners who are being choked by the extension of collective bargaining agreements and other onerous labour regulations. Chairperson, in the face of the challenges that confront us, the observations and recommendations contained in this report are feeble and the DA cannot support them. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. The EFF.
Honourable Speaker, the Economic Freedom Fighter reject this BRR on employment and labour. As if this department does not exist, more than 10 million, mainly youth and willing and are looking for work, cannot find work. Companies are retrenching workers every day. ArcelorMittal is retrenching as many as 2,000 workers presently. Sivaye Gold Mine is retrenching more than 10,000 workers. Even banks who are making profits are retrenching workers. More than 15,000 are at risk of losing their jobs in the banking sectors. Even state-owned entities like Eskom, SAA, Transnet, and Dinan are also retrenching workers. The ruling party has no believable plan to stop this retrenchment or a plan to create new jobs. We as EFF, we asked the Minister of Employment and Labour, Mr. Thulas Nxesi, in a question for written reply, whether the government will ever introduce the job protection bill. And he said no, because the current legislation is enough. This is how detached, irrational, and reckless our so-called leaders are. Speaker, we have an economy that put the interest of so-called investors above everything, including human life. Labor inspector function has completely collapsed. Workers are abused, raped, and dismissed without due processes. While in many cases, they work under a bad working condition without anyone to intervene. Transformation, especially in the private sector, has failed. White men continue to dominate senior management positions. Now the paging of black professionals in the state-owned enterprises by the Minister of Public Enterprises means that less and less opportunity for the blacks to get employed into a senior management position is reduced drastically. And here we are adopting the BRR, which divorces from the reality.
Your time has expired.
The EFF proudly reject this BRR.
Thank you very much. Is there any other party that wishes to make a declaration? Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable members, this department's mandate is to regulate the South Africa's labour market for a sustainable economy. Regulating the labour market must be achieved through, amongst others, the development of appropriate legislation and regulations, inspections, compliance monitoring and enforcement, social and income protection, and social dialogue. In its efforts to ensure the above, the department must also fully utilize its abilities from its internal audit and not merely await corrections or the identification of challenges by the Auditor General. This contributes to a slower response by the department to resolve its issues, which contradicts the idea to centralize its responsibilities. The department has also been recorded to underspend about 196 million, yet the department had not taken the appropriate steps to prevent the fruitless, wasteful, and irregular expenditure. The underspending in this department indicates obvious service delivery shortfalls. In fact, this department has listed in its reports that the Productivity South Africa and CCMA suffer from inadequate resources for the former and the need for the additional funding for the later. The department must work with Home Affairs, Honorable Speaker, to resolve the employment issues that saw violent attacks against some foreign nationals in the trucking, agriculture, and hospitality sector. The departments must perform more oversight to employers and verify the legality in terms of the documentation regarding their employees in these sectors. The Deputy Director of Home Affairs, Jackson McKay, stated that there is little control and regulation for immigration as to where they are located, and there is no policy to integrate people when they move from rural to urban settlements. The Department of Labor, together with Home Affairs, must design policies where immigrants are located in South Africa for the first few years according to the skills requirements of the regions in South Africa. We see other nations doing this across the world, whereby they approve skilled immigrants into their countries and conditionally locate them in regions and sectors for which they have been granted entry for. With these concerns, Honourable Speaker, the IFP supports the BRRR report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Freedom Front Plus.
Honourable Speaker, the unemployment rate in South Africa is sitting at an alarming 29.1%, the highest in 11 years. We have a higher than projected inflation rate and less than an ideal economic growth rate. These are not the ideal circumstances in which the department has to fulfill its expanded mandate of both implementing and monitoring the implementation of labour legislation and enabling job creation. Die departement en regering doen hulself ook nie 'n guns deur arbeids- en ander wetgewing te implementeer wat juis hierdie ideale kortwiek nie. En deur die privaat sektor keer op keer die swart skaap vir hulle mislukkings uit te kry, werk lankal nie meer nie. Daar is bepaalde tekortkominge in die Departement van Arbeid en Werkskepping en sy entiteite wat allereers aangespreek sal moet word. So nie sal die departement nooit in sy doel slaag nie. Dit is 'n absolute skreiende skande dat die ongevalle kommissaris as entiteit van die Departement van Arbeid vir die afgelope 9 jare weerhoude auditmening van die ouditeur-generaal ontvang het. Dieselfde geld vir die audituitkomste van die werkloosheidsversekeringsfonds en sy swak prestasie deur slegs 63% van sy jaarteikens te behaal. Swak bestuur aan die een kant en kortsigtige drakoniese wetgewing aan die ander kant veroorsaak dat werkloosheid bloot aanhou styg wat weer 'n bepaalde uitwerking op die fiskus en die land se ekonomie het. Speaker, the CEO of Capitec this week said despite the best of intentions, South Africa's Black Economic Empowerment Scheme has largely been a failure. I quote, "If you look at BEE in totality in South Africa, it hasn't worked because it should be there to help all South Africans, and unfortunately, it has only helped a couple of people." In contravention with this statement from the CEO of one of South Africa's best performing banks, the Minister of Labour and Employment, a department which entities cannot manage to get proper audit outcomes, stated in August that harsh measures will be resorted to ensure quicker transformation in the workplace. Government must wake up. Your policies are failing, leading to higher unemployment and insufficient economic growth. The FF Plus cannot support this BRR report. I thank you.
The Honourable Chaser.
Thank you, Honourable Madam Speaker. The committee, having assessed the report of this department, made the observations so as to make the department to turn things around. We have also noted a decline in industrial actions, an increase in non-compliance to legislative instruments by the employers, an upsurge of health and safety breaches in the productive sectors, that is agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, and also the lack of inspectors to enforce labor regulations. The Employment Equity Commission report delineates some of these challenges in great clarity. The committee also stressed the urgency of funding the CCMA for the purpose of discharging its duties properly. With the minimum wage coming into effect, we are likely to see employers seeking exemptions from the department. This process may end up requiring the CCMA to intervene or meet it. We have also noted some of the employers failing to comply with the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. This must be acted upon immediately by the inspectors. The NETLEC has to improve its capacity. It has failed to protect massive job retrenchment, which resulted in the economy contracting. In addition, Madam Speaker, NETLEC has not intervened with great efficiency to mobilize the social partners to retain jobs. Madam Speaker, there's a great need of cooperation between the Ministries of Labour and Mineral Resources, whereas Section 54 work stoppages are warranted because some of the mining companies do not enforce safety regulations. There are major implications for companies and the workers alike, as work stoppages tend to affect their profit margins and jobs, respectively. We support this report. Thank you.
Siyabonga. The Honorable Madisha.
Ke a leboga. Please permit